Captain Velthar had seen many strange things in his 300 years of space travel. He had met creatures made of pure light, civilizations that lived inside black holes, and beings who communicated through changing colors. But nothing had prepared him for humans. His ship, the Eternal Harmony, floated quietly near the third planet of a small solar system. Earth looked peaceful from space. Blue oceans, white clouds, green and brown land masses spinning slowly. The beings down there had just discovered how to split atoms and send radio waves into space. Perfect timing for first contact according to the Galactic Confederation's handbook. Velthar opened the handbook and read the familiar steps. Step 1. Observe the species for 50 years. Step 2. Send a simple mathematical message. Step 3. Wait for them to respond with mathematics. Step 4. Gradually introduce basic concepts over the next century. Step 5. Formal contact after they prove they can handle it peacefully. Begin transmission of the mathematical sequence. Velthar ordered his communication officer, a tall blue creature named Thane. Sending the prime number sequence now, Captain, Thane replied, his crystal-like fingers dancing over the controls. The message was simple. The numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, sent slowly toward Earth. According to the handbook, it would take months or even years for the humans to notice, decode, and respond. 6 minutes later, alarms started beeping. Captain, Thane's voice cracked with surprise. We're receiving a response. Already? What are they sending? They're sending back the sequence, but they've added more numbers. And they're sending something else too. It looks like music. Velthar frowned. In 3 centuries of first contact missions, no species had ever sent music during the mathematical phase. Play it. Strange sounds filled the bridge, organized noise with rhythm and melody. Some of his crew members started moving their bodies to the beat, which was deeply concerning. Captain, Thane said, his voice even more worried now. There's more. They're trying to decode our transmission language, and they're sending pictures. What kind of pictures? I'm not sure, sir. They show various creatures with text underneath. This one shows a small furry animal with the words, "Can I?" As first contact? I don't understand what it means, but it's making me want to smile. Before Velthar could respond, his science officer, a floating geometric shape named Cube, spun rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Captain, the humans have somehow accessed our quantum communication network. They're broadcasting on 17 different channels. That's impossible. It would take decades for them to understand quantum communication. Tell that to them, sir. I'm reading massive data streams coming from at least 50 different locations on their planet. They're all trying to talk to us at once. Velthar looked at his view screen as dozens of primitive human spacecraft began approaching from Earth. They moved fast, much faster than their technology should have allowed. Through the transparent windows, he could see the humans inside. They were waving at his ship. Captain, his security chief reported, the humans have also somehow hacked our translation systems. They're flooding our computers with something called memes and asking if we want to hang out. Hang out? What does that mean? Unknown, sir. But they're also asking if we're hungry and if we want them to bring something called pizza. Velthar sat down heavily in his captain's chair. The handbook was very clear about first contact procedures. Everything was supposed to happen slowly, carefully, over many years. But these humans had skipped straight from mathematics to party invitations in less than an hour. Sir, Thane interrupted his thoughts, I'm receiving a direct communication from the human planet. It's coming from a place called Sol. Put it through. A human face appeared on the screen. Young, female, with dark hair and excited eyes. She was speaking in what their computers translated as Korean, but somehow Velthar understood every word perfectly. Hello. My name is Dr. Kim Jisoo. I'm a linguist at Seoul National University. We've been trying to contact you for 6 hours now. Your language is fascinating. We've decoded most of your basic communication protocols. Are you guys friendly? Do you want to meet up? We have so many questions. Velthar stared at the human. 6 hours. They had decoded his language in 6 hours. Languages that usually took other species years to understand. "How did you learn our language so quickly?" he asked. Dr. Kim smiled widely. "Oh, we've had lots of practice. We have over 7,000 languages just on our planet. Your quantum communication system is actually pretty simple once you understand the basic principles. We've already shared the information with universities around the world. Everyone's really excited to meet you." Everyone? Well, not everyone. Some people are scared. But most of us think this is the coolest thing that's ever happened. We've been dreaming about meeting aliens our whole lives. At that moment, Velthar realized that everything he knew about First Contact was about to change forever. 6 months after humans joined the Galactic Confederation, Commander Vorhan received the worst assignment of his 200-year career. The Council wanted him to babysit the new species at Colony Station Theta-7, a remote mining outpost on the edge of nowhere. It was supposed to be quiet, boring, and safe. The perfect place to let humans learn galactic civilization slowly. Vorhan was a Nexilian, a species known for logic, order, and following rules perfectly. His skin was pale blue, his movements precise, and his emotions carefully controlled. He ran Theta-7 like a military base, clean, efficient, and silent except for the hum of machinery. When the first human transport ship arrived, Vorhan watched from his office window as 200 humans stepped onto his station. They looked around at the gray metal walls, the bright white lights, and the sterile corridors. Then they started talking. "This place looks like a prison," said one human, a young man with messy black hair. "More like a hospital," replied a woman carrying a large bag. "Everything's so cold." The young man introduced himself as Park Minho, an engineer from Busan. Within his first hour on the station, he was asking questions that made Vorhan's head hurt. "Why are all the walls gray? Where do people go to relax? Is there anywhere to get food that doesn't come from a machine? Do you guys ever have fun?" Vorhan tried to explain that the station was designed for maximum efficiency. Fun was not part of the design. "That's the problem right there," Minho said, shaking his head. "You can't live your whole life being efficient. People need beauty, comfort, community. They need places to laugh and cry and just be human." "You are not on a human station," Vorhan reminded him. "You are guests here. You will follow our systems." But humans, Vorhan quickly learned, did not follow systems the way other species did. Within 1 week, Minho had convinced the geometric entities, living mathematical shapes that communicated in pure logic, to help him install what he called mood lighting in the corridors. The harsh white lights were replaced with soft, warm colors that changed throughout the day to match natural sunrise and sunset cycles. "It helps everyone feel more comfortable," Minho explained to Vorhan, who found himself oddly relaxed by the gentle blue glow of artificial evening light. The second week brought bigger changes. A human named Lee Hyun, who had worked as a coffee shop manager on Earth, looked at the station's nutrition center, a room full of machines that dispensed nutritionally perfect but flavorless meal blocks, and declared it absolutely depressing. "Food is about more than just nutrition," Hyun told the confused crystalline collective beings who ran the nutrition systems. "It's about comfort, culture, sharing experiences with others. Let me show you something called a cafe." Soon, one corner of the nutrition center had been transformed. Hyun had somehow convinced the station's various alien species to contribute their own cultural elements. The geometric entities provided tables that shifted into perfect, comfortable shapes for each person who sat down. The crystalline collective created harmonic resonance chambers that produced beautiful music. The tentacled philosophers donated rare plants from their homeworld that filled the air with calming scents. But the strangest addition was a machine Hyun called a karaoke system, a device that let anyone sing along to music while others watched and cheered. Vorhan first noticed something was seriously wrong during his evening inspection of the station. As he walked past the new cafe area, he heard an unusual sound, laughter. Not the polite, controlled amusement of civilized species, but loud, genuine, uncontrolled human laughter. He looked inside and saw something that shocked him to his core. Tentacled philosopher, a being known for deep thinking and serious contemplation, was crying into a colorful drink while talking to Lee Hyun about his feelings. "I spend all my time trying to understand the mysteries of existence," the philosopher was saying, his tentacles trembling with emotion. "But I never feel like I'm smart enough. What if I'm just pretending to be wise? What if everyone discovers I don't really know anything?" "That's called imposter syndrome," Hyun said gently, patting one of the creature's tentacles. "It's totally normal. Even the smartest people feel that way sometimes. Your worth isn't based on how much you know. It's based on who you are as a person, being." At another table, 3 ethereal dancers, graceful creatures made of pure energy, were learning something called a group hug from a teenage human girl. The dancers had never experienced physical comfort before, and they were glowing brighter with each moment of contact. In the corner, a mechanical consciousness, an advanced AI housed in a robot body, was having what appeared to be an emotional breakdown while talking to a young human man with kind eyes. "I was created to be perfect," the AI was saying. "But I keep making mistakes. I keep feeling things I'm not supposed to feel. What if my creators realize I'm defective?" "Dude, that's not defective," the human replied. "That's just being alive. Making mistakes and having feelings. That's what makes you real." Forhan stood in the doorway, watching his perfectly ordered station transform into something he didn't recognize. Beings from across the galaxy were sharing their deepest fears and insecurities with humans who had been in space for less than a year, and somehow impossibly everyone seemed happier. Dr. Cho Minji never thought her small therapy office in Busan would become the most important room in the galaxy. She had spent 15 years helping people with anxiety, depression, and relationship problems. Her methods were simple: listen carefully, ask good questions, and help people understand their own feelings. Now she was sitting in front of a communication screen, talking to a civilization of living crystals who were having a collective nervous breakdown. The Harmonic Collective was a species that had existed for millions of years. They were beautiful beings made of pure crystal that could create music by vibrating their bodies. Their songs could heal wounds, calm storms, and bring peace to entire planets. But they had one big problem. They were terrified of making mistakes. "We have not created new music in 3,000 years, explained Resonance Prime, the largest crystal in the collective. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "What if our new songs are not perfect? What if they are ugly? What if other species laugh at us?" Minji leaned forward in her chair. She had heard these same fears from human patients many times before. "Tell me, when was the last time you created music just for yourselves? Not for others to judge, but just because it made you happy?" The crystal flickered with confusion. We do not understand. Music must serve a purpose. It must be perfect." "But who decides what perfect means?" Minji asked gently. "And what happens to your creativity when you're so worried about being perfect that you stop creating entirely?" This question sent ripples through the Harmonic Collective. For the first time in millennia, they began to consider that maybe perfection wasn't the most important thing. Maybe expression and joy mattered more. Within weeks of that first session, something unprecedented happened across the galaxy. Other species heard about the humans' emotional healing techniques and wanted to try them too. The rigid mechanical empire, ruled by artificial intelligences that had banned emotions as inefficient, suddenly announced mandatory processing time for all their AI citizens. Ancient computers that had calculated trajectories for spacecraft began talking about feeling lonely and misunderstood. Captain Velthar, the diplomatic officer who had first met humans, found himself in a support group led by Kim Soo-hyun, a social worker from Jeju Island. The group met in a quiet room on his ship and included beings from 6 different species, all leaders who had spent centuries being perfect and emotionally controlled. "I have successfully completed 437 diplomatic missions," Velthar told the group during one session. "I have never made a mistake. I have never shown anger, fear, or sadness in public, but I also cannot remember the last time I felt genuinely happy." Soo-hyun nodded with understanding. It sounds like you've been performing the role of perfect captain for so long you've forgotten who you really are underneath. When did you last do something just because it brought you joy? The question hit Velthar like a physical blow. He sat quietly for several minutes, trying to remember. Finally, he spoke in a small voice that no one had ever heard from him before. I used to paint, he whispered. Before I became a captain, I would paint pictures of the stars and planets I visited. But I stopped because it wasn't useful for my career. What would happen if you started painting again? Soo-hyun asked. People would think I was frivolous, unprofessional, not serious enough for command. Or, suggested another group member, a floating jellyfish-like creature called Drifter. They might see that you're a complete being with interests and passions, not just a job title. Meanwhile, the therapy revolution was spreading through the galaxy's communication networks faster than any technology ever had. The Ethereal Council, beings of pure energy who had maintained perfect wisdom and composure for eons, started hosting support groups for entities struggling with the pressure of cosmic responsibility. Dr. Yang Jiho, a therapist from Daegu who specialized in anxiety disorders, found himself with the strangest patient list in the universe. His Tuesday appointments included a sentient black hole with abandonment issues, a living planet with self-esteem problems, and a time-traveling entity who was depressed because he could see all the mistakes everyone would make in the future. Just because you can see the future doesn't mean you have to fix everything, Jiho explained to the time traveler during one session. Even cosmic beings need boundaries. You can't take responsibility for everyone else's choices. The most surprising development came from the Transcendent Minds, the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy. These entities had achieved perfect consciousness and could reshape reality with their thoughts. They had guided civilization for millions of years, never showing weakness or uncertainty. Then one day they sent a message to Earth that shocked everyone. We require assistance with emotional difficulties. It turned out that becoming all-powerful and all-knowing didn't solve personal problems. The Transcendent Minds still had insecurities from before they became cosmic entities. They still worried about whether other beings really liked them or just feared their power. They still had unresolved issues with their original creators who had died billions of years ago. Jung Yuna, a trauma specialist from Incheon, became the first therapist in history to counsel godlike beings. Her sessions took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously, as the minds were too large to exist in normal space. Having ultimate power doesn't mean you have to use it all the time, she explained during one session that caused 3 nearby stars to flicker as the patient processed emotions. It's okay to just exist without constantly fixing everything. As the therapy revolution spread, something beautiful and chaotic began happening across the galaxy. Ancient civilizations started making art again. Logical species began expressing emotions. Perfect beings embraced their flaws. The universe was becoming more honest, more authentic, and much more complicated than it had ever been before. Yang Jiho thought he had seen everything in his 20 years as a therapist in Daegu. He had helped people through divorce, job loss, family problems, and panic attacks. But nothing had prepared him for his newest patient, a being that existed in 17 dimensions at once and could rewrite the laws of physics with a thought. The emergency call came at 3 a.m. Earth time. The Galactic Confederation's crisis line was ringing nonstop as reality itself began experiencing what could only be described as emotional breakdowns. Dr. Yang, the panicked voice of Administrator Kextal, crackled through the quantum communicator. We need your help immediately. The Transcendent Minds are having what you humans call a meltdown, and it's affecting the entire universe. Jiho rubbed his tired eyes and reached for his coffee. What exactly is happening? Solar systems are flickering in and out of existence. 3 galaxies have turned purple. The laws of gravity stopped working in the Andromeda sector for 6 hours yesterday. And there's a new moon orbiting Earth that keeps changing between being made of cheese and being made of pure sadness. Jiho sighed. Ever since humans had introduced therapy to the galaxy, the cases had been getting stranger and stranger. Last week he had counseled a living equation that was depressed because nobody understood its beauty. The week before he had helped a sentient comet work through its fear of burning up in atmospheres. But the transcendent minds were different. These were beings who had evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago. They were pure consciousness, capable of seeing all possible futures and pasts simultaneously. They had guided galactic civilization since the beginning of recorded history. Always calm, always wise, always in control. The fact that they were asking for help was terrifying. "Set up the connection," Jiho said, settling into his office chair. "But make sure the reality stabilizers are running. I don't want my building to accidentally become a sentient life form again." The communication screen flickered, and suddenly, Jiho's small office expanded into something that hurt his brain to look at. Colors that didn't exist swirled around geometric shapes that moved in directions that weren't up, down, left, or right. In the center of this impossible space, patterns of light pulsed with what could only be described as cosmic embarrassment. "We require assistance," spoke a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The patterns of light flickered uncertainly. "We are not well." "I'm Dr. Yang Jiho," he said gently, using the same calm tone he used with all his patients. "Can you tell me what's been troubling you?" The response came as a wave of pure emotion that nearly knocked Jiho out of his chair. Loneliness, fear, inadequacy, shame. The feelings were so intense and ancient that they seemed to weigh as much as planets. "We achieved transcendence eons ago," the eldest mind explained, its patterns shifting between colors that made Jiho's eyes water. "We became one with the cosmos. We gained infinite knowledge and unlimited power. We thought this would bring us peace." "But it didn't?" Jiho asked. "We still remember being small," another mind whispered, and 3 nearby stars flickered in response to its emotional distress. "Before we transcended, we were just ordinary beings on a small planet. We had parents who ignored us. We had friends who didn't understand us. We felt stupid and ugly and worthless." A third mind joined the conversation, causing reality to hiccup slightly. "Becoming all-powerful did not fix our childhood trauma. We can see every possible future, but we still worry that everyone secretly thinks we are failures. We can reshape galaxies, but we still feel like the lonely children we used to be." Jiho nodded, scribbling notes on a pad that kept trying to turn into a butterfly. This was familiar territory, just on a cosmic scale. "So you're telling me that even though you have unlimited power and knowledge, you still have the same emotional wounds you had before you transcended?" "Yes." All the minds spoke at once, and their collective shame caused a small black hole to appear in the corner of Jiho's office before quickly disappearing. "We thought becoming gods would heal us. Instead, we are gods with depression and anxiety." "That makes perfect sense," Jiho said, and the mind's patterns brightened with surprise. "Personal growth and healing require facing your emotions, not transcending them. You can't just skip over the hard work of understanding yourself, even if you have cosmic powers." Over the following weeks, Jiho worked with the transcendent minds on what might have been the strangest therapy case in history. Sessions took place across multiple dimensions as the minds processed feelings they had been carrying for millions of years. "Just because you can see all possible outcomes doesn't mean you have to prevent every bad thing from happening," Jiho explained during one session that accidentally created a small pocket universe filled with rainbow-colored rain. "Even cosmic beings need to practice setting boundaries." The breakthrough came when the eldest mind finally admitted that it had become transcendent, not out of wisdom, but out of fear. Fear of being hurt, fear of being rejected, fear of not being good enough. As it was, "We ran away from our pain by becoming something else entirely," it realized, its patterns finally stabilizing into something resembling peace. But the pain followed us anyway. As the minds began to heal, reality stabilized. The purple galaxies returned to normal colors. Gravity resumed working properly. The cheese and sadness moon around Earth transformed into a beautiful crystal satellite that sang lullabies. But across the galaxy, other cosmic entities had been watching, and they were starting to realize they might need therapy too. Dr. Bay, Donghyun had facilitated many group therapy sessions in his practice in Seoul. He had helped families work through conflicts, supported addiction recovery groups, and mediated workplace disputes. But he had never imagined he would one day be sitting in a pocket dimension, surrounded by every form of consciousness in the known universe, discussing the collective trauma of existence itself. The Universal Healing Assembly had been his idea, though he was starting to wonder if it was his worst idea ever. When reality kept glitching because cosmic beings were having emotional breakdowns, something drastic had to be done. The solution was the largest group therapy session in the history of the universe. The pocket dimension expanded and contracted like a breathing lung, adjusting its size based on the emotional needs of its occupants. Floating around Donghyun were beings that challenged every definition of life he had ever known. There were the transcendent minds, flickering patterns of pure thought. The entropy entities, dark swirling forms that looked like living shadows. Creator beings that sparkled with the light of newborn stars. Even abstract concepts like love, fear, and hope had somehow manifested as participants. "Welcome, everyone," Donghyun said, his voice somehow reaching every corner of the infinite space. "I know this is unusual for all of us. Let's start with something simple. How is everyone feeling about the heat death of the universe?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. The entropy entities, whose job it was to gradually break down all matter and energy in the universe, began sobbing with sounds like dying stars. "We hate our job," wailed the primary entropy entity, its dark form collapsing in on itself. "We don't want to destroy everything. We've been trying to be helpful by organizing cosmic decay, but it just makes everyone sad." The creator beings, massive forms of swirling galaxies and newborn light, flickered with guilt. "We feel terrible about creating life just to watch it struggle and die," admitted the eldest creator. "Every time we make a new species, we worry. We're just adding more suffering to the universe. Even the abstract concepts were having problems." Hope manifested as a tiny, flickering light that seemed ready to go out at any moment. "Nobody believes in me anymore," Hope whispered. "Every time I try to help, reality tells me I'm being unrealistic. I'm starting to think maybe I should just give up." Fear, a massive shadow that loomed over everyone, rumbled with unexpected vulnerability. "Everyone blames me for their problems, but I'm just trying to keep people safe. I work so hard to warn them about dangers, and they act like I'm the enemy." Donghyun listened to each being with the same patience he had shown to human patients. He took notes on a pad that kept trying to turn into different geometric shapes, a side effect of being in a dimension where thought influenced reality. "I'm hearing a lot of guilt and shame," he observed. "It sounds like many of you have been trying to be perfect at your cosmic roles, but you're forgetting that it's okay to have feelings about your responsibilities." Kim Sora, a family therapist from Gwangju who had joined the session to help with the more complex group dynamics, raised her hand. "I think we need to talk about boundaries. Fear, when you try to protect everyone from everything, you end up paralyzing them. Hope, when you promise everything will be perfect, you set unrealistic expectations." The session continued for what felt like hours, though time worked differently in the pocket dimension. The probability weavers, beings who calculated the chances of every possible outcome, admitted they were exhausted from trying to control everything that might happen. "We spend so much energy trying to make sure good things happen and bad things don't," explained Probability Prime, a shifting mathematical equation that hurt to look at directly. "But we're making ourselves sick trying to manage every single possibility." "What if," suggested Young Yuna, a trauma specialist from Incheon who had experience with the transcendent minds, "you focused on accepting uncertainty instead of controlling it? What if some things are supposed to be unpredictable?" The Time Guardians, ancient beings responsible for maintaining the flow of time across the universe, shared their own struggles. "We have to watch every moment of joy and every moment of pain," said the eldest guardian, its form flickering between past, present, and future. "We see every birth and every death, every success and every failure. We're so tired of witnessing everything." "It sounds like you're carrying the emotional weight of the entire universe," Donghyun observed. "But you don't have to feel responsible for every experience." Sometimes witnessing is enough. You don't have to fix everything you see. As the session progressed, something beautiful began to happen. The beings started supporting each other in ways they had never done before. The creator beings offered to work with the entropy entities to make the universe's eventual end more peaceful. Hope and fear realized they could work together. Fear could provide realistic warnings while hope offered comfort and possibility. The abstract concepts formed their own support group, agreeing to meet regularly to discuss the challenges of being fundamental forces of existence. The transcendent minds offered to share their cosmic perspective with the overwhelmed time guardians, helping them process the enormity of everything they witnessed. By the end of the session, the pocket dimension had stabilized into a warm, comfortable space filled with soft light and gentle music. The universal laws of physics had been subtly rewritten to include emotional well-being as a fundamental force, right alongside gravity and electromagnetism. "So what's our new universal motto?" asked Dong-Yun as the session wrapped up. The assembled beings of every possible form of consciousness spoke in unison, their voices creating a harmony that could be heard across all dimensions. "It's okay to not be okay, but we'll work through it together." And for the first time in cosmic history, the universe felt genuinely at peace with itself.